All right. Well, we are 2 minutes past 8:30, so let's get things kicked off here. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the annual CBA legislative training for sections and committees, legislative liaisons, and in leadership. Onto the agenda that we have here today. I'm Andy White. I'm the legislative director for CBA. I think I've introduced you. And this is just a quick run through of our agenda today. Before I get too far to the agenda, just as a heads up, this meeting is recorded, so we can post it on the website for members to access at a later point for those who aren't able to attend. I do want to let you know that this is it's on a members access only portion of the website, so it's not available to the general public, just for your awareness. So overall, so again, welcome, and this is kind of an odd welcome and introduction from my part. This is, as many of you have received notice, this is my final day at the Bar Association. This is my third and last time leading this program. And I just want to say it's been a true pleasure, and I'm glad that I'm able to join you all today for this final training. It's been an incredible opportunity to work on behalf of the bar. And I thought it was a good chance for me to impart some observations on your role here and what we're all gathered here to train you all and relay the tools that you need in working on the legislative program and contributing to the CBA's legislative program. And I'll just note, in terms of observation, the CBA really is a remarkable organization. It's unique in terms of its legislative advocacy, and the sections are integral to the legislative program of the CBA. Now, of course, like any other advocacy group, we defend the practice of lawyering, much like any other advocacy groups. The dentists, the architects, doctors, the accountants, they all look out for their profession at the legislature. So what makes the CBA unique at the Capitol as a legislative advocacy program is the fact that we have members in various areas of practice who operate throughout the Colorado Revised Statute, and that's remarkable and that's unique. And we have a unique voice and a unique role at the legislature. Our stake in the revised statutes of Colorado is to make sure that laws that are passed are fair, are thoughtful, are complete, are functional, most importantly, and also constitutional. And there's no other advocacy group at the state capitol that takes such a broad and holistic approach to the statutes. And I just want to impart upon all of you that our role and our voice is unique, and your contributions to the success of the program is duly noted and important. So I want to note the role that you play. You've all volunteered as part of your sections and committees, either as a legislative liaison, a legislative policy officer, or other section leadership, such as chair. And I want to let you know that you all, I'm going to use an analogy, hopefully I don't strain it too much, but that of our legislative program being much like a car. Where you all are the engine that drives it. You are the intellectual muscle that enables our legislative program to function and enables its success. Each section is its own cylinder in that engine, or for those of you who have electric cars, a coil around the electric motor, each of you contributing to the power and the strength of the overall organization. The LPC, and we'll talk about that later today, the Legislative Policy Committee, really is representatives of the membership, and they're the drivers. The members are the drivers, taking the feedback that you provide to the LPC and pointing the direction about where we are to go. And then there's the CBA staff, myself, my successor, Amber Valdez, our contract lobbyist, Amy Larson, Amy Serena. We're the tires, we're the windshields, we're the GPS of that legislative program car. We keep you safely on the road. Our GPS can help you navigate some bad political storms along the way, and make sure that you get to where we need to be safely, depending on where the driver, the membership, or the LPC kind of charts the course about where we're supposed to go. It's all, I think, an integral component, but this car is not going to go anywhere unless we have the intellectual power and strength that's demonstrated and relayed from all of you in the sections. And so all of you kind of act as a team, and it may feel like you're all in individual silos in your particular sections, but you all operate as one team representing and working on behalf of the legal profession. And I'll say that's because your credibility, the dedication that you put into the work, the analysis that you put into the legislation that's introduced, and the feedback that you receive from your members and present to the LPC and eventually to the legislature builds the credibility of the CBA generally, and it builds your credibility as a section, but it also lends and provides for the credibility of others who come to the legislature on behalf of the CBA. And why is that important? Well, the only political capital that we have, the only political currency that we have, is our credibility and our ability to be honest and upfront with our analyses that we provide the legislature. We don't have a PAC, we don't make political contributions, and so therefore it's our ability as attorneys to be able to weigh in on legislation with honesty and integrity to the legislature. So that's when when a member of the business law section appears before a particular committee or a member, they build the credibility so that when an elder law representative walks through the door, they know this is the CBA. They operate with integrity. They operate with truthfulness, and they bring solid analyses and critiques to the law. And so all of your efforts lift up and help every other section. And that's what we want to make sure that it's a successful program overall, and you all contribute to everyone else's credibility and strength at the Capitol. And that's why we're strong as an organization together. And what's unique again about all of us is that your interest at the Capitol is not necessarily commercial, that of your clients. It's not ideological in terms of aligning with a political party. It's not necessarily pecuniary when it comes to a financial interest at stake, but it's really to make sure that the law operates. It operates fairly and efficiently for the practice of law for your clients generally and for Colorado as a whole. And so that's where it's been, I have to admit, a true pleasure to work on your behalf and work on behalf of the legal profession. It has been just an absolute honor, and I'm excited to get you kicked off for the upcoming 2022 legislative session. I hope that you find the information that we go over here helpful as you organize your review processes within your individual sections. And I truly mean it that I think that this is a remarkable group of dedicated volunteers, and I appreciate your effort to have this above and beyond your practices, your time at your office, your work with your family. Your efforts are certainly noted, and it's important to our efforts as the Bar Association generally. So that's it. Thank you, and we'll kick off in terms of our additional welcomes and hello. So I'll turn over to Amy to say hello, and to Amber Valdez, our contract lobbyist.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. And Andy, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for your dedicated service, your diligent work, the hard efforts, especially as you came in and the pandemic was kicking off for all of us. The last two sessions have been unusual. And to see the bar continue to deliver on the values and the mission, and especially the legislative work that is such a hallmark, as you so well expressed, was phenomenal. We will miss you very, very much. Thank you for leaving the program elevated, stronger, and in good hands. And we will continue to work together as a united team. And to share with everyone on the phone, we have already posted Andy's job position. We have a good transition plan internally to bridge us until we have a new legislative director on board. So as the weeks progress, we will keep everyone apprised of that. And our hope is to have a new legislative director on board before session starts. So that's our goal and aim. And any questions coming forward, please feel free to reach out to me. Amy Serena is on the phone with us, and on video as well. She and Jess Ham will also, along with Jessica Lindsay, be working behind the scenes and with you in partnership with Amber and with me to bridge us during this time. So you're in good hands. Andy has set us up well. And we wish you the greatest success, Andy, in your new adventure. And we know, as you say, it is not farewell. So we look forward to remaining in touch with you. There's a great program ahead this morning, and we'll just jump to it. I'll turn things over to Amber. And on behalf of all of us, thank you, Andy, and thank you, our member leaders, for continuing to dedicate yourselves to this very important, significant program within the bar. Amber?
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. And, thank you so much, Andy, for everything that you've done. I can really say this is my second year representing the Bar Association, and it truly is an honor to represent this organization at the state legislature. Andy really has, elevated this team, and I'm so lucky to get to work with him for a year. But I feel like we'll be able to take it and, run with it now. We, as Amy said, have worked out everything that we can internally to make sure it's as soon as possible, make sure that, you don't feel anything except the superior level of, engagement that you're used to getting. When we look forward to this upcoming session, we just always appreciate you working quickly with us. I know that this is volunteer, so, for you to be here today, we really appreciate it. And for all of the time that you take to read legislation and get things to us quickly, we really appreciate it. Again, I'm going to try as hard as possible to make sure that you understand deadlines and that you understand urgency when it's there. Again, the legislative process can move quickly, and when we are all only meeting once a week, sometimes things can happen. So we appreciate your flexibility with this process and with us. And I think that we're poised to have a great session. And this year, I don't think that our agenda is going to be as active as last year proactively, but of course, we're just going to see so many bills, and people come to the Bar Association because we are so highly respected that they want our opinions, and they want to make sure that they're not doing something that will have unintended consequences that will, affect your practice and how, everyone operates in Colorado. So again, thank you so much for your time, for being here today, so that we can all start off on a strong foot and be ready to go for session.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you, Amy. So let's get kicked off with the training. So what we are going to do today, I'll lead along with Amber a discussion of our legislative and CBA processes, so you kind of get a feel for how the flow and how we get an issue through the CBA, so we can work the team can work on advocacy on your behalf at the legislature. We'll take a break as time allots, probably about just 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll be joined by Karen Suhaka, who is the founder of Bill Track 50. This is the online tool that will enable you to track and organize incoming legislation. Then we'll have Amber provide an update on preview on what we see coming ahead. And I did not update this because I'm still stuck in 2020, like most of us, for the 2022 legislative session. All right. So quick thing on housekeeping. I talked about recording, and also if you could please make sure that everyone's name. It looks like everyone does have their name. If you could also include in the chat your email and the section, just so we can take attendance for everyone who's here, to make sure that we covered everyone, and also make sure that we've got the most up-to-date email for you. And then also for the benefit of the group, if you can put your section name in the window, I see Jerry Pratt has done so, just so we can, and Rob Nolan just indicating you're with real estate or elder, et cetera, just so we know who's here representing which section. All right, well, to wake up, we're going to do a quick poll here. Let's find out who here is what when it comes to our morning drink of choice. Well, participate, there should be a poll up for everyone. Are we coffee drinkers, tea drinkers, water, juice, other? I did not put an option of something stronger. So, all right, let's close that and let's see what the results are. Okay, it looks like we are, by and large, a coffee drinking crew. We have one tea drinker. I will not invite you to volunteer who you are, so you can intermingle with the rest of us who are coffee drinkers. All right. So let's first kick off a little bit on the Colorado Legislature. What are we looking at? So the General Assembly meets January till May. This year it convenes on January 12th and will adjourn sometime in probably the second week of May. We are anticipating, and Amber, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are anticipating after 2 years of unique legislative schedules, we're anticipating a 120-day session start to finish with no breaks, hopefully due to pandemic response. So hopefully we shall all be done with our responsibilities by mid-May. The House and Senate are both in Democratic control due to the legislative redistricting, which was just finalized by the Colorado Supreme Court last month. We anticipate, at least for the next few cycles, that Democrats are favored to maintain their control over the next few cycles in the decennial legislative maps. The Senate does have some more competitive districts overall, but the Democrats are generally favored to maintain control. Just as a heads up, and what's both beneficial but also a bit of a challenge, members, each of the 100 members of the legislature are entitled to 5 bills for introduction. And so this is a benefit because we know that there are no more than kind of 500 bills of primary interest to the legislature, so it limits the number overall. But it also makes it a challenge when we have a proactive agenda where we want to bring something forward, because legislators may have their, what I like to call their dance card already filled, because they only have 5 slots available. So it's both a benefit and a drawback. We also see a number of bills introduced in excess of those 5. Those are generally due to legislative committees that meet during the interim to study a particular topic, and those can be introduced in excess of a member's 5 bills. Those other committees that can introduce bills in excess include the Budget Committee, and also I think, as a number of you are familiar with, the Colorado Commission on Uniform State Laws also enjoys an exemption from that 5-bill limit. And we're going to be touching on this, but it's important to hit kind of the themes here, is where does CBA and how can CBA influence the legislative process, influence the adoption of bills and the substance of those bills. And we really do that most effectively. Meetings with legislators and other advocacy groups is the key component there. And making sure that we relay one-on-one with sponsors, committee chairs, what are our issues, what are our concerns, where are we trumpeting success in other areas for bills that are introduced. Working with other advocacy groups, partnering with other folks who share our values or sometimes may be opposed, but at least we need to understand where we may differ. And then, of course, committee hearings and testimony. I put that last. That's certainly one of the more public ways in which we testify, but it's kind of the last step in terms of our advocacy at the Capitol, is when we have members of the bar come and testify in open session, because we'll have had all of these meetings leading up to that final public testimony, but meetings with those advocacy groups and legislators beforehand. And that's how we're going to be kind of focusing on how do we take our ideas here as CBA sections and get to these points of influence at the end of the process. There are a mess of bills that are introduced in any given year. This is a chart from Legislative Council on a number of bills introduced. You will note there is a bit of a lull in 2020, at least those bills that were signed by the governor, because the legislative session was truncated due to the pandemic. And so it limited the number of bills that we saw in 2020. However, we saw the number of bills actually signed into law jump in 2021 jump to a record high over the past 5 or 6 years. And so and I show this chart just as a heads up on the volume that we are going to see. But don't let that number of 500 passed and about 630 introduced in any given session. It is a manageable flow of bills as it's coming across the desk. Again, we're working as a team, and the several dozen that may impact your individual section it's manageable in terms of your review. And so, but just keep in mind that there's a larger body of bills that are passing across the desk here, but do not fret. Fortunately, you're able to focus on just the few dozen that are going to be of particular interest to your areas of practice. We have another poll up for us to kind of get to know each other. For our benefit, so we know kind of where everyone is coming from. How many years have you been part of your section's legislative team? And that can be part of a legislative committee. Let me find the next. Launch that poll. Part of the legislative team, legislative liaison, legislative committee. Good to know, like, what are we looking at in terms of our experience here? I think we have a broad swath of folks here. I'll give a few more seconds before I close out the polls so we got a good perspective. All right. So it looks like we've got a variety of folks here, which is wonderful, and that happens pretty frequently every year. We've got 2 members here today that have been active for more than 5 years on their legislative team. A few that are first year, and then we've got kind of an equal amount between 2 and 5 years. So again, we've got experience across the board here represented. And for those of you, this is your first year. Everyone else here around the virtual table had their first year at some point along the way. So know that this is a fun process and a rewarding process where we have our repeat customers coming back for the program. So 600 to 700 bills a year. How do we, as an organization? Oh, wait, I just got a chat from Amy. Oh, I lost the share screen. My apologies. Thank you, Amy. I think when I went to the poll, it removed the PowerPoint presentation. So my apologies. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. So we're looking at. Can I get a thumbs up? Can you see the PowerPoint presentation on everyone's screen? Oh, gosh darn it. Again. Oh. Okay, can folks see my screen now? Okay, I see nods. My apologies. Okay, so how do we get through this 600 to 700 bills a year? How do we break down our review? Well, it kind of breaks down to who are the people, what are your responsibilities as a section council, and liaison, and what is the LPC action in our advocacy. So the key players here we're looking at, of course, is the Legislative Policy Committee, which I referenced earlier. They're the representative body of members of the CBA who kind of chart the course, who give the thumbs up or thumbs down for proposed positions coming up from the sections, making decisions on behalf of the CBA. Of course, we have sections committees doing the work of analyzing the bills and proposing what we like to see in terms of changes in advocacy at the legislature. We have my role and of course my successor, as well as Amber Valdez, our contract lobbyist. Now, in terms of the section's responsibilities, it really is to review all legislation that's coming through. I'm going to touch on some of the automated ways that happens, and some of the manual ways that you'll need to just do a double check on those bills. The sections need to, of course, relay to the LPC your proposed positions to the LPC, and of course make a presentation to the LPC. And the Legislative Policy Committee, of course, is charged with providing the direction for our program, and for our legislative team of CBA staff, our legislative director and contract lobbyists to then advocate at the legislature and coordinate those efforts. So I'm kind of breaking down the legislative process into six steps. So we go from when bills are introduced, your preliminary review within the sections and prioritizing those bills as they're coming through. Those bills that kind of rise to a level of interest or concern are submitted for analysis, a vote, and submission to the LPC, preparation for the LPC and the LPC meeting, and then eventually that advocacy and lobbying role. Let's dive in. I'm going to do the first two parts together. So how we work through this process is we'll have a Bill Track 50 automatic notification. And we'll have a little more training on that system, but know that there's a means by which you can input key words or key terms. So you've got an automatic scrape every night of bills as they're introduced. You can see what's being introduced and what might be of interest. The CBA will be notifying you as well in terms of bills that may not have been caught by the automatic system. And then, of course, kind of the last way to catch legislation that might be of interest is to do a final check of all the bills that have been introduced. They're usually introduced no more than 60 to 70 a day at the most, but usually there's, after the first few weeks of session, trickles down to a dozen or two until the middle of session. So it's manageable to make sure that what bills might be of interest to your particular section. And really, sections and committees drive the work of the LPC. And it's important to note the categories of interest, and there's going to be some greater guidelines and depth here for how the LPC evaluates. But really, bills that impact your substantive area of law, the practice of law, the judiciary, and the justice system are top priorities. When we're in this interim step right here, we recognize that there are going to be questions coming up from the sections on whether it be LPC process, the legislative forecast, or legislative strategy. Amy Serena here is on our meeting. She's going to be the point person on CBA staff to be able to direct that question that sections may have during your review, to make sure it gets to the right person, whether it's Amber on sort of Amber and Amy on legislative strategy, or whether a bill has a good chance of passage, or groups that might be in support or opposition, or just general administrative questions on the CBA process. We'll make sure that we get those questions addressed for all of you. The other thing that's important for the sections as well is that if you identify a bill for greater review, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to send that to the LPC for a proposed position, but if you're elevating it, circulating it with members because it's something that might be of interest, it's important to notify Amy Serena of that as well. She'll be maintaining a list of those bills that are of interest, and enables Amber to have some preliminary conversations with members of the legislature while you are doing a more substantive, in-depth review. That's important because it allows us to flag any sort of initial issues for a sponsor or a committee chair, so then we don't catch them surprised kind of later on in the process. It enables us to give a heads up to legislators by maintaining that flow of information internally between the sections and our legislative team. So then let's move on to the third step. And the third step that we're looking at is once you've identified sort of your prioritized bill for review, the question is, of those prioritized bills, which ones should jump to an analysis? Which ones are the ones that you want to take a position on and recommend that CBA advocate on overall and submit to the LPC? The first is your analysis in the LPC memo. This is the summary document that is provided by the section to the LPC. It outlines your proposed position on legislative matter. You all, as the section legislative liaisons, are responsible for coordinating drafting amongst your members. It doesn't mean that you have to draft it yourself. I encourage you to rely on the expertise and the volunteers within your section, so you're not burned out by doing all the drafting yourself. So be sure to share the responsibility, bring people into the process within your executive councils, and rely on the expertise within your individual sections to make sure that memo is put together, that's a useful tool for the LPC. Of course, section councils differ for each section. Of course, vote on the proposed position. That's important that you've got the blessing from your section on what the position is to the LPC. And the LPC memo or the analysis memo should really include some key components. Your recommended position by the section, and those are limited to positions support, propose, amend, and monitor. These are aligned with the reporting requirements that we must follow with the Secretary of State. We can't deviate from that. We don't have another option or more nuanced options that we can put in. A vote of your section's governing body, usually the Executive Council. So we know, was it split? Was it unanimous? And so it allows the LPC to ask some questions on that. Summary of the legislation itself, an analysis and discussion of the section's recommended position. And lastly, the question of how does it fit with the CBA's mission and those categories of legislative interest. And in your packets that were emailed out to you yesterday includes two sort of more in-depth documents on how the CBA kind of weighs through those substantive areas. The memo to the LPC should be 1 to 2 pages. Of course, we've had longer memos to address more substantive bills. Obviously, it's not a hard and fast rule, but more of a rule of thumb than anything. This is vitally important this year in particular, as the CBA will be in a transition as I'm departing. But your LPC meeting materials are due 10 a.m. Thursday to Amy Serena. 10 a.m. is important because we have to get the packet out by close of business on Thursday. It takes a fair amount of work to make sure we get that packet together and out. That enables the LPC sufficient time to review and pose any pre-meeting question back to the sections. And when I talk about materials from the sections to the LPC, the things that need to be included in that submission, who's going to be presenting to the LPC on the matter. It can be the liaison, it can be maybe a subject matter expert, or some hybrid team of the two. Again, the section's position, the LPC memo, so that's clear. The bill or bill draft, so make sure that you include that bill in your submission. Amendments, if we are aware of any, either amendments that you are proposing as the section, amendments that we're aware of from other entities, or amendments potentially from the sponsor, and any other relevant materials that you all may have, whether it be a report from, say, the Uniform Law Commission on a particular bill, or some other supplemental material that may aid the LPC in its understanding of the issue. It's important to note the feedback from the LPC, while they all as well are experienced in their own areas of law, they have indicated that treat them as though they know nothing about the issue before them. Very frequently, we may have some experienced members on the LPC on elder law or criminal, but they may not know much about sort of a corporate governance question. And so it's important to think about how do you kind of bring them up on basis of knowledge on something that they may not have a great deal of familiarity about. Again, just as a reminder, Amy Serena, as you've noticed, as a theme here, has been is our sort of central point of contact during the transition. We'll be sending out more reminders and about that flow of information, questions during your bill review, and making sure that you send back to her a list of your prioritized bills that your sections are reviewing, and then of course sending her those LPC meeting materials. And I think it's important as well for clarity of communication, especially if you have a team of legislative liaisons. Make sure that you have one point of contact going back and forth with Amy Serena, just for ease and clarity of communication between the section and Amy, so she can be that gap filler for us while we are in this transition. Amy, any other thoughts on that? I want to make sure that that flow of information is good and clear from the section back up to you.
Nope, that should work. And just so you guys know, I popped my email into the chat, although you guys probably know it by heart because I harass you incessantly with emails. So feel free to reach out with me with any questions. I'm around.
And thank you, Amy, for this added work on your workload as I transition out. I'm greatly appreciative, and for everyone in the sections to know, Amy does an amazing amount of work already, and I appreciate her filling in on this part on my departure. All right, so we've talked about the analysis and submission. Let's talk a little bit about LPC prep and the LPC meeting itself. So the packets are distributed to LPC section leadership, including yourself, by close of business on Thursdays. Also for your members and just the general CBA membership, the LPC meeting packet is available as well on our State Legislative Affairs webpage. It's going to be posted at the same time that email goes out. So if folks in your section are interested, you can always direct them to that page, or certainly forward along the email that you get as well, just to make sure that we've got ease of transparency and engagement for the members if they're interested. The LPC has expressed interest in relaying questions to presenting sections. So we will endeavor to get those questions to at least 24 hours in advance. It's not necessarily to write a written response back to the LPC, but really to prepare you in your presentation so that you can answer those questions during your presentation to make sure that you're not caught flat-footed by the LPC from what could be a kind of out of the box type of question, and really to improve the dialogue between your section and the LPC, and to be able to dive into issues that may pop up for them when they're reading the packet, say on Saturday or Sunday before the Tuesday meeting. And then, as I mentioned before, the section presentations to the LPC, Tuesdays at noon via Zoom this year. The LPC memos, of course, distributed by CBA staff to LPC and section leadership, and the section subject matter expert or the liaison or both, of course, make the presentation to the LPC on behalf of the section. So that collaborative process is very much important. We don't just submit memos for consideration like briefs to an appellate court. I want to make sure that there is a dynamic, robust era of conversation between the sections and the LPC as they consider the CBA position on the bill at hand. The Legislative Policy Committee as we've kind of noted throughout the training here this morning, as a reminder, they are of course the decision-making body that makes those choices on legislative matters on behalf of the CBA. They operate on a grant of authority from the CBA Board of Governors through our bylaws as an organization. And LBC really directs our legislative advocacy, focusing on statutory clarity and consistency and aligning the CBA categories of legislative interest. Again, there are 2 memos in your meeting packet that provide a bit more narrative on those topics. And also just important, the nitty gritty. The LPC meets Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Usually the meetings will go about an hour and a half. Again, open to all CBA members to attend. And as I mentioned before, LPC memos and the meeting materials are due from the sections the preceding Thursday at 10 a.m. To Amy Serena. And then the last bit in our 6-step process, of course, is we have our lobbying with all that work leading up to the actual advocacy at the Capitol. So first thing to note, just because the LPC grants the section to say, yes, the CBA opposes the bill, or yes, we need to see an amendment, or yes, we support this bill, doesn't mean that the section can then go over to the Capitol and then start lobbying. All legislative and lobbying efforts at the Capitol need to be coordinated through Amber. She will be in touch with you when the LPC takes its decision or makes its decision to ensure that we've got a coordinated and strategic lobbying effort on a particular bill. We'll pull advocacy materials largely pulled from your LPC memo, so we continue to reuse the information and material that you all put together, so we don't have to reinvent that wheel, and we can repurpose that information and analysis, not only for consistency's sake, but also to make sure that everyone here doesn't have to pull their hair out to keep rethinking how to restate an argument. So we really do use those LPC memos over and over and over again. They go into fact sheets and testimonies, internal and external communications. As I did note, Amber, of course, will coordinate legislative meetings and external meetings with external advocacy organizations, and of course, lead the coordination on counting votes and setting up testimony. Amber, is there anything that you want to add in terms of the advocacy step here for members just to note?
No, I think you've covered it really well. Again, I know sometimes legislators might feel that they can reach out to you, might have personal relationships. I just think that it's really important that you make sure that I'm up to date on it, because I do see them in the Capitol daily, and I just want to make sure that I have the best information to represent you to my best ability. And so that means being up to date on all the most current information. We are never trying to cut you out of the process at all. We just want to make sure, since I'm the face at the Capitol, that I am aware of everything that's going on. And, again, we are just so thankful for all the time that you put into this, and we just want to make it as efficient for everyone.
Absolutely. And Amber, you raise a really good point, because all of you, through your various practices, interface with, and they have friends who are legislators, and that's great, and that's wonderful. And it's important, though, as Amber points out, make sure that you CC either Amy or Amber when an issue is elevated to advocacy at the Capitol, just to make sure that that we're aware she's not flat-footed when the legislator pulls her aside in the hallway and say, I had a great conversation with so-and-so from CBA on this topic. And you put the game face on and you just kind of go along with the conversation. But it's always good to make sure that she can have an engaged conversation to advance the goal on behalf of the CBA. And that only happens when we have good communication in and amongst one another. And we did have a question from the chat from Allison Butler. Is there any way to let other sections know if a section has submitted a memo for LPC review, where 2 or more sections have an interest in the same topic? And Allison, this is an excellent question, and that's something that we have been working hard. And I think it comes not only at the LPC level, but before the LPC memo or the LPC process and request for a position. So I'll back up. Why we're requesting that sections notify Amy Serena of those bills that have been prioritized before they've gone through the full review and analysis, before they've gone to an LPC memo, but just a flag to the LPC or to our legislative program that, hey, this bill is of interest, of concern, of warranting extra review. We are taking a look at that bill, FYI. And this is something that will be shared with Amber and Amy, and Amy, feel free to jump in. But one of those reviews that I would do, and I know that Amy and Amber will continue, in that initial review is thinking, are there any points of cross-pollination across other sections? And so I think that that's going to be vital to make sure that we check in with other sections, and that's something that's going to be top of mind for both Amy Larson and Amber going forward. And then the second place here as well that we've instituted a significant change in the past 3 years has been to make sure that all sections receive the LPC packet, all section chairs, all section liaisons. And so that can serve as the last and final catch, that in case we don't see on the initial review, flag it for another section of interest, but also when that memo does hit Thursday close of business, that it provides us with yet another opportunity in case we missed it through those internal processes, that sections have the ability to flag a bill that is also of mutual interest to another section. At that point, what I have traditionally done, I suspect that this will continue, is allow for that section to provide an additional memo or supplementary memo to the LPC with concerns or interests or different opinion, and certainly the opportunity to present to the LPC on that particular matter. Amy, I kind of teed up at least what I've done in the past. Is there something else, or Amber, if you'd like to add to that process? I think it's an important thing as we all are working together as a team across sections.
Yeah, Andy, you captured it really well. Thank you.
So, but I think, Allison, a vital question and an important one about how we all work together as a team. Thank you. All right. So we got another poll here, and we'll make sure that I don't pop us off. Okay, so for us to continue to get to know one another, are we a night bird, or I'm sorry, early bird, or a night owl as our group? How do we work? How do we get the most done? What do we find the most enjoyment here? All right, I'm going to end the poll right here, share results. And it looks like we've got more early birds, although that might just be the nature of the fact that I set up a meeting at 8:30 in the morning for everyone to join. So we'll see how many views we see on the recorded session of those who might be night owls who will tune in later. But we're kind of more 2 to 1 more early birds. Okay. So with that said, and actually this is a very good segue to our Bill Track 50 conversation. I am going to introduce Karen Suhaka. She's our the developer and I think founder of Bill Track 50, as I recall. And her company is based in Colorado, but she is physically located in London, or I'm sorry, in the United Kingdom. So she is certainly on the night owl side of things as she's joining us this evening. And she's going to go through a tutorial of the Bill Track 50 system. And I will turn it over to her and allow her to share her screen. So Karen, if you give me one moment. Or Karen, let's see. Oh, there you are. I'll make you a co-host.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see you all again. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you for that, Andy. All right, so because most of you have seen this and probably more than once, we will keep it fairly direct, but of course you can reach out to me if you have any trouble once you start trying to use it on your own. So this is the new face of Bill Track 50. We have a new homepage, which has links to different help and in fact scheduling a meeting. Please don't be shy about that. You are welcome to reach out to us directly. If you ever run into any trouble with the tool, we're happy to help. So the idea of Bill Track 50 is just helping you track the legislation, see what gets introduced so you can review it as we are talking about today. So I have logged in as if I am Robin Nolan. So Robin, if you're here, it's a little bit of an out-of-body experience. Sorry about that. But that is my example here. So I just want to start right out with just reminding you how to navigate around in here. So the navigation bar over here will have the bill sheet section, and that's really where most of the work gets done. So if I open that up, I see that I have a link to all of the Colorado bills, and obviously that'll be 2022 by the time you're using it, as well as whatever the real estate section has set up. You will have at least one link here to your section, possibly more. So if I just go right into this by clicking on it, then that opens the bill sheet. And it really is just a big Excel sheet full of bills. So these are all the bills that met a certain query. You can use this grid by, you can sort it and see like what happened most recently. You can filter it by like a certain sponsor. So if I hover over one of these names, I get this little filter guy, and then I can filter and it'll filter my sheet and so on. So it's pretty easy to use. But what you're trying to do is decide if these bills are going to merit any kind of consideration. So when you're looking at these bills, you can click on a row and it'll expand and give you the full details. So what it is and the summary and who sponsored it and whatnot. That's probably not enough to decide if it's important. It might be enough to decide if it's unimportant.
Say, Karen?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, sorry about that. I think we're seeing the screen is frozen, I think, from the initial landing screen.
Oh, goodness.
And we're not
Let
seeing
me
the
unshare and try to
spreadsheet.
share again.
Okay,
Sorry,
no
everybody.
problem.
Thank you for stopping me. All right, so I was trying to have a grid open. Did that show it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I had just started on my home screen and I opened the bill sheet section. So this is the same as it was last year. This is the navigation, and then you pick which one you want to go to. And I opened up the real estate one and got my grid. And then I showed you could filter, you could sort by clicking on any column, and you can filter by hovering over, and then that'll open up a filter box, and then that will filter based on that column. So you can use this to discover things if you want to. You can also click on a row, as I mentioned, to expand it and see the name of the bill, a little bit about the bill, plus the sponsors of the bill. All right, so if you look at a bill and you think it might be of interest, then you can click on the bill number, and that'll open up the bill itself. And this hasn't changed from last year. So it's just all of the information organized in these tabs. So these light up as it goes through the process. You'll be catching it early in the process, of course. And then you can see the bill text, and you can say highlight search terms, which will show you what caused this bill to come up for you and help you focus where you want to read, which can hopefully save a little bit of time for you. And in fact, it says my words are here 12 times. So I can just kind of step through, and when I've hit the end of my 12 words, I know that nothing further, it has my actual terms in it. So that's just trying to be a convenience for you. And then if you're interested, you could follow the rest of its life and watch as the votes come in, and even see the links and go to the state legislature website if you'd like to read a fiscal note or see what else the state has published. We try to keep that all organized for you here, again, just to save you a little bit of time. So you can click here and go off to the state legislature website. All right, so that's looking at a bill. It should be pretty straightforward. Obviously, reading it is the trick of it, but you guys all know how to do that. Okay, so that is getting to a bill. Now, let's say you have decided this bill is not of interest. then you can come in and you double click in the cell you want to write in, and it'll pop up and you can say not relevant. And then when you hit enter, it'll save that. And then you can exit out and just hide it from this sheet. And you should definitely do that to keep this as tidy as possible and to save time for anyone else who's trying to use this data. It's not relevant, it's not relevant. Go ahead and click that X. And this note will let everyone know why you did it. So don't be shy about going ahead and removing these once you make the note. I'm not going to leave that there because I don't know about that, Bill. Otherwise, you can enter in some information for you to help you keep this all organized. So you're not trying to write your whole memo here. This just might be who you assigned it to, or when you've got a due date, or any initial thoughts you've got, but just whatever notes you want to keep to help you keep this all organized. So put in your comments, and then that will help Amy, and that will help the new Andy, and that will help everybody just kind of know what's going on with your section. Now, again, you can remove this bill if it's actually not relevant. And if you do that, you can get it back if you change your mind. So I'm going to show you now about the query tab. So these are all the bills to consider, and this is the bill sheet tab. If I look at the query tab, this tells me the words that we're looking for. And so the real estate section itself decided these words. You can fine tune this query and should. So at some point early in the session, or even before the session starts, you might want to come in and just glance at these words and make sure you think they're still relevant. There's just two things to know. First, if it's a phrase like real estate that you want to keep those two words together in that order, you put quotes around it. That makes it a phrase, and we only search for the whole phrase. Otherwise, normal words, just no commas or anything, just spaces between them. The other thing to know is that if you're not sure if it will be deed or deeds or deeding or deeded, then you can put a star on the end of a word and it will put any ending. So a star can only go at the end, but it does give you a little bit of flexibility if it's possible that there might be a slightly different ending on that word. So go ahead and glance at these words. And once you start reading the bills, you might come back in here and remove a word or add a word. So you are welcome to do that. This is for you to work with to make it as helpful to you as it can be. And then as you saw, when I said highlight search terms, it highlighted whatever words here matched up in my bill. All right, and then I promised you to show you how you can get bills back if you accidentally remove something. So anything you've removed goes up into this list of hidden bills. And so you can see over the years, real estate has hidden 400 bills. So if I click on that, it'll bring up that whole list. Now, this grid works the same way. I can sort it to see what I've hidden most recently. So if you just hid something, you can find it right away, or you could sort by bill number or whatever you need to. But this way, Andy or the new Andy, Amy or anyone else can come in here and review what was hidden. So you don't have to worry that that's going to ruin anything. And you can also clear it from the hidden list, and that'll pop it right back into the main sheet. So I'm just encouraging you to remove bills you don't need, because it's not a dramatic decision. It just keeps your life tidy and makes it easier on everyone. Okay, so then the last item on this screen of interest is you can actually add bill numbers, add bills by bill number. So if there's a bill that you think is important, but doesn't actually have any of these words in it, you can still enter it in here at the bottom and force it to be on this sheet. So the way this works is you click wherever you've got, at the end where you've got room, and then you type CO space for Colorado, and then it'll show you the format of the bill number. So we don't want the year in front of it, we just want the bill number. And then you just start typing. And it'll show you, well, I was a little aggressive on my bill numbers here. It'll show you your choices, or you can just finish typing the number and hit enter, and then that will add it to your sheet. Now, it's also possible Andy or somebody might identify a bill that they want you to consider, and then they'll add it to your sheet. If they do that, they will let you know that there's a new bill. But they can give you something when they're reviewing the whole state and say, this is something we really want to make sure that real estate sees. So those bills can get added by you or by somebody else. If it's someone else, they'll give you a heads up. All right, I'm not going to save any of my changes here. So that's the query tab. Any questions about that before I move on and show the new alerts? Is that all good?
Karen, I have a few questions I've seen pop up, but I'll hold those till in case there's any immediate questions that folks have right now.
About querying of the grid.
Okay. Okay. So a few things that popped up. Bill Track 50 login that popped up in the thread. Just as a reminder, it's important to go to Bill Track 50. Those who are continuing on, your login should still be effective. Let Jess Ham know if that is not the case. If you are a new member, you should have received an invite. And even if you don't see the invitation email, you should still be able to log in with the email that you're signed up on CVA alerts for, because that's the one that we signed in for you to register. I want to stress Karen's tutorial on keyword. The keyword is that one of the 3 key nets that we have in order to capture bills of interest for your section. So make sure that you go through and really evaluate, because it's going to be a stronger tool for you if you're able to automatically pick up the things that are of heightened interest for all of you to capture bills for review. So this is a really important tool. It's going to scrape bills on a nightly basis, and you can have alert emails set up for you to be notified when those bills are populated in your bill sheets. There's a question about additional training. Karen has some great tutorial videos on the web page, and I think it's included on the homepage, tips for new users. Some great videos, but Karen's always wonderful in terms of responding, her and her team, to provide additional training. And then last, there's a question is who can see the comments that are input into your bill sheets? So if you are the only legislative liaison for your section, you are the only one who's going to be able to see it, along with the administrator for the system. So myself, my successor, and Jess Ham, so our CBA legislative team. Other sections will not be able to see your comments, so you can be as formal or informal as you want. Now, if you have co-legislative liaisons like elder law, where you have Shauna and Emily working as a team, they'll both share and have access to that elder law bill sheet, and they'll be able to see the comments that each of them put out. It won't be individual to each other. They'll be specific to the elder law, and they'll be able to see the comments that either of them post to the elder law bill sheet. And Karen, fill in. I feel like I've asked questions and answered. Did I miss anything in responding to those?
No, but you did remind me to point out that in the bill, in the search terms, you can include statute numbers that you want to keep track of. And you can, if you have any punctuation in there, like 1238.5, then put quotes around it. But otherwise, you can just search for the statute numbers, and we'll let you know anytime they're changing something existing that you know is important. All right. Thank you for all of that. And yes, please do reach out. We're always happy to hear from you and happy to help. And that is just fine. Okay, so Andy mentioned about alerts. So you can and should set up these alerts. So if you come in, this is you, I'm on Robin's account right now. So Robin has not set up the alerts yet. So when you come to this screen, if nothing is checked, then you want to check new bill. And that'll just email you each morning, letting you know what was introduced the day before. It's a really simple email. It's one email. We mail it around 5:30, 6 a.m. And here is my email from this morning. So I'm following minimum wage, and I can see that these 2 new bills came in, and maybe these had actions. So it's a real simple grid, just so you can kind of see what's what. And if it catches your interest, you can click through and read the bill right away. But otherwise, you're just keeping yourself up to date with what's been introduced. Now, if I had said only send me new bills, my email would only have these 2 lines in it. So we don't even mail you very much. But if you do want to follow the bills through the process because you're interested, then you can say, let me know when these bills get voted on, and then we'll let you know when they come out of committee, and we'll let you know when they cross over to the other chamber. and have their final vote. So you'll see them move through the process, and they'll just appear in your email again. But again, it's just one email, no matter how many of these you set up, so that you can just kind of keep yourself in the loop. So we do encourage you to set up those alerts. Obviously you don't have to, but it is helpful. And then the new option this year is we have this event schedule. So we always had the ability to say, hey, I'm interested in when my bills get scheduled for a hearing. And if you say add bills to event schedule, then we'll pop them into this list. And that's just going to be a chronological list of when the bills on your bill sheet are scheduled to be heard in committee. Now we have this new feature where you can export those bills out to your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar if you're interested enough that you'd like to see that information right where you normally look at your schedule, and you want to go to a hearing. Obviously, you're going to want to coordinate with Amber if you're actually planning on attending, but that will at least keep you in the know for when these bills are coming up to be heard. So no, if you just click this, then we'll just pop them here and you can just review it whenever you want to. If you say, go ahead and email me, we'll send you a second email every morning with the week's worth of hearings, just so you know. And then again, you can export it out to your calendar, and then we'll try to keep it updated on your calendar. We update that data 4 times a day to try to keep it as up to date as possible, since they might change them at the last minute. So that's a new feature that we've got for Bill Track 50, is putting it onto your own calendar. Okay, so that's kind of it as far as looking at the bills, either removing them or putting some comments on them, and then, kind of fine tuning the query, which is mainly what I wanted to show you. I do want to show you though about making a new bill sheet. But are there any questions about the alerts or the emails or anything about the data before I move to actually making a new search from scratch? Alrighty then. So here in this list, I've got another bill sheet here that you all are going to have access to, and that's all the bills. So you can go trolling through this whole list if you want to anytime. And if you see a bill here you want to add to your sheet, you just click this plus, and then you can add it right to your sheet. So that's one way you can grab a bill. But if you don't want to go through all the bills that were introduced, but you do have something you're looking for, then you can create your own query. So click on this view all here at the top, and that'll show you a list of everything you've got permission to, but it also has the new sheet button. So if you want to create a new search for your section, name it real estate section, and then something so that you know like what that special search is for, and give a heads up to whoever is the new Andy that you've added some stuff, just so they know. And then that's fine, and you can create as many of those as you want. But also, I'm still subject to Colorado law, and as a citizen, I super appreciate that you guys are taking the time to make sure that the laws are, workable and not some sort of crazy hash. So, I mean, yeah, I genuinely appreciate that. So our Bill Track 50, thank you to you for volunteering. You are welcome to create your own searches and do whatever you need for your firm, for your personal interest, whatever. I don't know if you read legislation recreationally, but if you do, we'd love to help. So feel free to create your own sheets for your own reasons and use them however you want, set up the alerts and take advantage of the tool for your own purposes. If you do that, when you create the search, it's private just to you. As was mentioned before, nobody else can see it. So none of the other sections will even be aware that that sheet has been created. So nobody else has access to it. So that's just something you can take advantage of if you want. You can create as many extra searches that you need for your job or for your life. And I hope that that comes in handy. I don't know if it will, but again, sincerely, thank you for doing this for all of us citizens who have to live by these laws. It'd be good if they were all well written. So that was what I had for today. Any last minute questions about any of it?
Karen, I just had a quick clarification that if a new bill sheet is added, the new Andy and anyone who's an administrator for CBA, so just Ham is also an administrator, they would be able to see bill sheets, but those are the only folks external to your section who would be able to see those bills. Or
They would be able to, they could, yeah, they would be aware that they got created.
Okay, and then also if you have two individuals signed up under the same section or same section bill sheet, would they have to add their collaborator on? So they
Yes.
would only be able to see, even if they have 2 or 3 members from their section looking at their same section bill sheet, they have to proactively make sure their colleagues are added onto that newly created
Exactly.
bill
So
sheet.
when if you make one for your section, again, it's still private. And that's why you'll have to reach out to the new Andy or Jess and ask them to put the other people on it so that they can see it, which is easy to do. So they can add the other individuals. But yeah, if you make a new section sheet, let somebody at CBA know.
Okay, I'm looking through the chat. And are there any other questions that folks have for Karen? Well, Karen, I just want to say thank you, and for the members of the sections here today. Bill Track 50 of the 4 or 5 bill and regulatory tracking systems that I've used, Bill Track 50 really stands out, both in terms of its ease of use, its tools, its flexibility and responsiveness for Karen and her team. So make use of the tool, and I think that there are lots of fun things that you can kind of add it to your suite of tools, whether it be LexisNexis, Westlaw. You can Bill Track 50 to kind of search other bills as needed. It's kind of an extra perk of your role here as a legislative liaison to have kind of an extra powerful tool at your disposal.
That reminds me, one more thing real quick, if I may. I'm sorry. I'm going to pull up my bill sheets here again. There is this little quick search feature on the side. And so this lets you search across the whole country. So if you are curious about what's going on in other states or what other states are working on this topic or what other legislative language has been introduced, you can look across the whole country for bills or legislators, or even look up committees and let's see, for example, you could say, hey, what states made a COVID committee? And then search that and then see like what states worked on that and see what the committee was. And anyway, so all that data is here and you are welcome to it. So you can even search across the entire country. So I don't know if that would be helpful, but I just wanted to point out that that is available to you as well. And thank you, Andy, for your kind words. I'm very excited to be helping again this year.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right, good luck, everybody.
Right, and
and
again,
don't be shy about reaching out if you need help.
Thank you, Karen. And the offer is genuine. They are extremely responsive and wonderful to help us. So we are fortunate to have such a great system integrated into our program. So with that said, we've got about 10 minutes left or so of the program. I want to end a few minutes early. If possible, we've got another, we actually have the LPC meeting at 10 a.m., of which you all are welcome to join, of course. So I'm going to go, I'll just leave these Bill Track 50 helpful hints for folks as a reference for those who have the presentation. I want to touch a little bit about legislative timing and have Amber join in the conversation as well. So we went through the legislative process, bills are introduced, your review process as a section. And now the question that we always run up against is we have a constitutionally mandated 120-day maximum length of a session in any given year, special sessions notwithstanding. I want to impress upon everyone that this is going to be the tricky balance act that you all have. Because obviously if you have more time to analyze and put into your LBC memos and your proposals, we lose and Amber loses time to effectively advocate the legislature, because the bill may move through the process. Amber, do you want to comment on timing versus when we get information, our ability to influence?
Yeah, absolutely. As Andy mentioned before, the Supreme Court ruled during 2020 that the legislature did not have to fulfill its 120 days consecutively if there is a governor's executive health order. We are no longer under a statewide emergency health order, so we will have to fill out those 120 days consecutive, which is actually a great thing for most of us, but that is what makes it so hard for all of you, because then you have to work a lot faster. You know, some bills, especially at the end of session, I think especially if it's your first year, you know, they kind of ease into it during session. Of course, this is the second year of this current General Assembly, so they're going to move a little bit faster than they would after an election year. They try to be nicer to freshman legislators, but now in their second year, they try to hit the ground running. So, you know, we will have a little bit of ease in time, but sometimes bills, you know, they only need a 24-hour notice. Sometimes they'll take that 24-hour notice at the end of session. They can suspend the rules, and you don't even need a 24-hour notice for a hearing. And, you know, so again, we'll be working together really quickly. But again, at the beginning of session, you know, some bills, they're ready to move through, and, you know, we'll see them get to the second chamber within a week. Some bills, we'll see it take a month. And so you just never know. It depends on the priority. It depends on who's running it. It depends on if, you know, they have other bills that they need to run after that. So there are a variety of things that make it move quickly or make it move more slowly. For instance, if it's a bill that has a fiscal note, it might get stuck in appropriations until after the budget, until March. And so, you know, we'll see it in the first week move quickly, and then we'll just see it sit in a committee until March. So I'll try to keep you updated as much as I can, but just know that typically time is of the essence, and we always have to proceed with a sense of urgency, because they can just move it at any time, and we're working on their schedule and not on ours, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And this is where this is painfully tough sometimes for attorneys. We want to make sure that we get everything as exacting and as perfect as possible. Sometimes that it's just not possible given the time frame that we have. So it's that fine line of balance, and this is where relaying to Amy Serena your list of bills that you are kind of elevating for some further review and analysis kind of early in the process. So that way, Amber, in consultation with Amy and my successor, can help position a bill as quickly as possible if we've got issues or want to weigh in on it at a later point in the process.
Yeah, one quick thing that you just said, Andy, that you reminded me of, that yes, I know that we like to be as technical as possible, but sometimes before we have all of the information, we just need to tell legislators that we have an issue. So if you could just tell us immediately that we have an issue, that way we can give the sponsors a heads up. They appreciate having that heads up early rather than later in the process. That's just a courtesy that we like to give them.
Absolutely. And to show how our timeline review kind of lines up with a potential legislative timeline, I'm pulling Senate Bill 19-181 in a side-by-side, so you can kind of see how that time frame works and with a realistic section timeline for review. Senate Bill 181 was a priority, so it moved through pretty quickly, but it did take a full month to pass. We can pass a bill in just a few days, so this is kind of in the medium realm of a priority bill, but moved quickly. It was introduced Friday, March 1st, late in the day, so that means that your section probably wouldn't be able to review it until Monday the 4th. It had its first committee hearing on the 5th of March, next week, the following week on Tuesday. I'm guessing that sections may not be able to have internal meetings until maybe Wednesday of that week, so after the first committee hearing. And maybe you convene with the section or with the legislative team at CBA later on the week, the next day, Thursday the 6th. And then you kind of got a course charted, and then you put it to your section executive council for a vote, maybe by Monday, March 11th. Well, look back in the first column, it's already on the floor of the Senate on Tuesday, March 12th. And so we have effectively lost the ability to influence the bill in the first chamber. And this is where that initial sort of, ooh, we're going to flag this bill. So Amber, Amy, my successor, kind of triage how to best communicate with legislators depending on that bill. So when you submit that bill to your section for review and a vote, the earliest that it could be before the LPC is Tuesday, March 19th. And you'll notice it was introduced and waited for 10 days between House and House committee, but a vote by the LPC on March 19th really only gives us a little bit less than a week to be in an official position before the second House's first committee hearing. And so this is the tough act that and the delicate dance that all lobbyists have to march through with regard to the time frame. And just seeing it visualized in the calendar here, introduced on Friday. It was out of the Senate almost just under 2 weeks later, and then introduced in the House at a week delay, thankfully, because that was when the House was considering the budget, and then it rocketed through the House in that fourth and final week of the bill's consideration. So as Voltaire said, perfect is the enemy of the good sometimes, and in lawmaking that frequently is the case. So with that said, we've got a little bit left, we just have a few minutes left in our time here together. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber to give a bit of a legislative preview. And again, I'm trapped in 2020, and I did not update this to 2022 for the purpose of this title slide. So, so my apologies, Amber.
No worries. Yes, 2022 is looking to be a crazy year again. You know, as you all know, there were redistricting and reapportionment that changed up the legislative seats after the 2020 census. Now, we saw several legislators drawn together, and that leads to some kind of competitive, you know, races that we have up. Also, the Supreme Court ruled that they only had to approve the maps if they were, if the commission followed the Constitution, not if they were the best maps possible. So we saw more legislators drawn together than we've ever seen before. It just is not normally what happens. So now we're going to see more competitive races. And right now the Democrats control the House 41-24. They have a pretty big majority over there, but it looks like because of the way the new maps were drawn, the Republicans can pick up some seats and make that gap more narrow. And then the Senate is always competitive. And so, you know, right now they have Democrats have a 20-15 majority. So Republicans are going to look to close that gap. I think that the Republicans are going to try to ride the wave of the majority party with the president during a midterm election. Typically does not do as well at lower levels of elections during a midterm year like this. We're not seeing Biden have the most popular numbers right now, so I think Republicans in the state are going to try to capitalize on that. The governor is up for re-election, and as we saw in the last election, Jared Polis has a lot of money and he will dump a lot of money in to win again. So I think that Democrats on the local level will try to ride his coattails. So it's going to be super competitive and everybody wants to just, you know, win their seats and keep a majority. So that always impacts the legislation that they run. So I think that we will see, as we do every election year, a lot of bills that people know will not go anywhere. They're going to die probably in their first committee, but they run it just so that they can tell their constituents they did it. So, you know, we'll be making sure that we tell you if there are bills that have traction and that, you know, this is going to really happen, or if it's just a bill to make a statement for that legislator. We still have a lot of money to spend for COVID relief in federal dollars. So that is one thing that they'll really be focusing on. I know last year the real estate section saw a lot of legislation. This year it's looking like we won't see as much legislation. We'll just be looking to spend that money and put more effort into getting more affordable housing in the state. You know, overall, transportation's always been huge. Last year, they passed a big transportation infrastructure bill. It looks like they're just going to keep going on that same path. I'm not sure that there's going to be any major legislation this year. Climate change is another thing that kind of goes along with transportation that they're going to try to work on. Democrats, again, I think that they feel that their majority is probably not going to be as big as it is now, so they're going to make a push to try to get some things passed while they have the majorities that they currently have. Again, I think that we're just going to see a lot of focus on the budget while we have these one-time dollars. I think that we're going to see a lot of, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. A lot of bills that, you know, will have to do with, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I looked down at my notes and I ran my page. They will, you know, be going off of things that started last session that they'll have to finish out before people finish their terms. So, you know, it's going to be a wild year. It's going to be, you know, a lot of action happening. And, you know, we do have several things that we have been working on with legislators that, you know, are preparing to have their last session. And, you know, a lot of times when legislators feel that they are leaving the building, they want to get some things done and, you know, just looking for little wins. And so, you know, we'll try to give them the best way to do that because, you know, we just want to be able to work with legislators and make sure that we give them the ability to be as successful as possible. One of the other things that we'll be seeing a lot of emphasis is on education. Right now, we saw a lot of learning loss because students weren't able to be in schools. And so I think that we're going to see a lot of money going there, a lot of legislation and focus on that. The governor submitted his budget and he did put in a lot of space for mental health. Again, a lot of this, we're going to see more COVID recovery. We're going to try to see them pumping money into getting the economy going again. I know that the Democrats in this state really do want to say that they did something for the economy so that they can try to hold their majorities. And, you know, Republicans, of course, want to focus on jobs and making sure that we have a successful, you know, economy from, you know, a lot of the jobs that were lost. Of course, as I kind of hit on a little bit before with affordable housing around the state, we're seeing a crisis. And so we're going to try to see it in a lot of different areas, especially rural areas, how we try to get housing. Obviously, you know, we've seen people move because of the pandemic. And so it's going to be interesting to see how people resettling in different areas kind of impacts the election as well. I think those are the big major topics that we are going to be seeing this year, but it's going to be a wild year as always. So be prepared to see a lot of communication from us, and just really looking forward to working with all of you.
Right. Well, thank you, Amber. And I just want to thank everyone here today. We're at the end of our time here. We're going to be reconvening at our LPC meeting that starts just now. I do want to just again reiterate my thanks to everyone's hard work over my tenure at the CBA. You've made your success has been my success. So I just want to say thank you for helping me be being the best advocate for you at the legislature. And now I'd hope that we'd have some time for some questions, but as you, unfortunately, we do not. But if you do have any questions on process going forward, please do reach out to Amy Serena. We will also have this this presentation posted on the website later today, along with the updated meeting packet as well with those materials. So again, thank you. I know you're going to have a successful 2022 legislative session. and I'm going to be cheering you on from other pockets and corners of the state. So thank you, everyone, and have a great Friday, okay?